son of a bitch.
Whoa. What was that? Hi everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Phantasy Star Online Blue Burst. We're gonna jump back into the grind on the Affinia server, of course. Where else? We just had some technical difficulties at the start of the stream. Had to do some shit tests, make sure everything was working right. You know, the soundboard, the things. Had probably a familiar outro that was accidentally played as an intro kind of situation from our last Affinia stream. You know, some minor tech issues, but I think we're good. Yeah, let's get on with it. We got about an hour. We're gonna fuck around and find out for an hour.
You are twisting your shafts right now!
Maybe.
What? What the fuck?
Ah, shit. Here we go again.
Oh no. There. We're back to the default music. The goddamn Halloween event is over. Muraoka. Is it me or Tyrone Bigums? No, Dogum. No, they went out of the way to make sure that, like, yeah, they went out of the way to make sure that character has a dumper on him. I was like, they're the same character type. You see that? But the hips on this one, yeah, they focused on that. Yeah, they definitely took the slider to make the hips go whoop, just a little wider, you know what I mean? Anyway, let me double check my inventory real quick. Let's see, do we have anything I have to... Oh yeah, I do have stuff to put away. Including a dragon's claw, of course. Wasn't it because one of my storages got full, actually? Let me check. Oh yeah, this one. This is getting really full. Oh. Yeah, that's why I had taken those out. Oh, yeah. Must be that situation where I was like, I'll take care of this off stream later, and then... Wait, is it this? Yeah. And then I never did, of course. Okay. So, not today, but one of the days of this week, I'm definitely gonna be, I'm definitely gonna do a 2-hour stream, because this event ends on Saturday. Just like today, Saturday is when it started. It's always a full week, right? But I won't be here next Saturday. So I'll have to do just like when I went on vacation last month during an EXP event week, and I did 2 hours on like 3 days in a row just to make up for that, for the 3 days I wasn't gonna be here. I'll do the same thing. I'll do 2 hours on one day this week to make up for the hour that I'm gonna miss on Saturday. But yeah. Not today though. Today I'm only doing an hour. So. Get the hell out of here. Oh yeah. The fishies. The fishies are back, right? Yeah, okay. I think they were gone for the Halloween decorations. I think. Alright, time for some Dragon Loop cereal. Here we go. Brought to you by Tyrell Bigums. No, not Tyrell Bigums. Alright, put the music back on, man. Yes, this is actually the track we left off on our previous EXP grind week or whatever. This is the one. Oh yeah. Okay, that should be easy to adjust later. The FF14 rendition of Dancing Mad from FF6. You know, I recently saw like a sort of documentary kind of video from these guys I'd never heard of before. This YouTube channel I hadn't heard of before. I guess they got like a podcast or whatever, and they're obviously video game related. They went to, I think, PAX East or West, and they got to meet like Yoshi P and some of the Square Enix devs, and then they got invited to actually go to to check out Square Enix's like development studio. Awesome. Speaking of, okay, so a Japanese name, found a red ring after defeating Dark Falls. Congratulations. The fuck? I'm hitting shit. But yeah, they got a chance to go look at like behind the scenes stuff for like what Square Enix does for FF14 in particular. And they had a little segment where there's two segments that stood out to me the most, because I mentioned this when I was playing through Phantasy Star Online 2. I mentioned how Sega made the bold choice of making your character have a certain predetermined job class for certain cutscenes later in the game, so that your character actually does things in the cutscenes rather than just sits there and do nothing or fight with a very, very boring and generic style, because your character can be any job class, just like in FF14. So, you know, they take away a little bit of agency. That's why it's a bold choice. They take away a little bit of agency from the player, because you might envision your character being a different job class than what is depicted in those cutscenes. And in FF14 they didn't want to do that. So your character the trade-off is, because they didn't have the budget or time to animate every single race with every single job class doing something unique in a cutscene, in the same exact cutscene over and over, like, so that everyone, you know, is satisfied in that way. The trade-off for not being able to do that, but not betraying, like, making your character be a job class that maybe you don't envision them as, is your character just stands there and does literally nothing. Like 99% of the time, which is extremely frustrating in some of the very, like, highly emotional and intense action sequences that can happen in FF14 stories sometimes. At least, you know, back in Shadowbringers and Endwalker anyway. It can be frustrating to see your character just stand there and do nothing while everyone else does all the work, you know? So it's like, they were stuck between either doing that, which is what they did for over 10 years, or doing what Sega did, where they would just force the newest, shiniest job class, or whatever one they wanted, basically, on your character, whether you like it or not, for the cutscenes at least. Which I saw that NGS does it too. Your character is pretty much just a hunter, even if you're playing another job class for the cutscenes. As far as I can tell, anyway. I haven't played much of NGS yet. We just started it this last week. And so then, because I mentioned the last time we talked about this topic, I mentioned that for Dawn Trail, even though I haven't seen the cutscene in question, I've heard people talk about it. They actually finally made a cutscene where your character does something. Where your character in FF14 and Dawn Trail, apparently there's a scene where your character actually does something with the job class that you're actually playing as, rather than like a generic movement or attack or whatever. That's like with your fists or your feet, which is what they did in like the Hildebrand quest, I believe. In Endwalker, I do remember seeing a couple scenes like that. So they actually did that. And so in this behind the scenes like sort of documentary thing that I brought up earlier, sort of looping, you know, I was trying to give context to what I was about to talk about, basically. I had to say a lot there, but in this this little like documentary thing, they mentioned how much work and how much time and effort went into just that one scene in one of the latest Dawntrail patches where they have your character doing something with the job class that you're playing as. It's like one action sequence, and they said it basically took like I think it was like 1,500 hours just animating that scene, that same exact scene over and over again with different job classes and different races and genders. Because that's how tedious and difficult animation can be, basically. Proving that they can do it. They do have the budget. They just never wanted to because it takes so much time. But honestly, I'm glad that they made the sacrifice finally, after over 10 years, of actually doing that. Because, again, it is quite frustrating if your character just sits there and does nothing when the world's like falling apart or something. It's ridiculous. It looks stupid. So yeah, seeing that, I'm like, yeah, I can understand a lot more now why Sega chose to do what they did instead, where they just force your character to be there's like a canon job class for your character that they decide for all of us, basically, for the cutscenes, because they're just like, yeah, we ain't doing all that. Like, we're not animating every single job class just because your character can be every job class, just for the cutscenes. We're just gonna force a job class on your character and be like, do stuff like this. And we saw that when, in most of, like, Chapter 4, your character plays as, the hero class in the cutscenes. Or, sorry, Chapter 5. Because they introduced hero in, Chapter 5 or whatever. So in all the cutscenes, your character is basically a hero class. And they did some really badass animation work for a lot of those scenes, honestly. And then they did Phantom and its Wall for Chapter 6, where those two job classes were added. So I gotta say, I don't know. Sega's method is obviously much more cost efficient, but again, it takes away a little bit of player agency. Because they'll see their character doing things they probably didn't envision them if it's not the job class they picked. So I got lucky for Chapter 5 because I picked hero, of course. So for me, it fit. And I didn't mind Phantom and its Wall stuff in Chapter 6. Looked pretty badass, honestly. And so, yeah, so if they just lock down the job class they want to force on your player or on your character, they can do all kinds of shit. Like, they made your character actually does some pretty badass stuff in those cutscenes. If they choose not to do that, they end up like you end up with an FF14 situation where your character will literally actually do nothing. Or the company ends up spending a shit ton of time and money, which Square Enix has. So this is by no means an excuse. They have the money for this. They just never wanted to do it before. But yeah, they spend a shit ton of time, money, and resources animating every single job class for every single character size and gender and race for every goddamn cutscene where your character does something, and that's just a fuck ton of work. Again, they can't do it. They're not excused if they choose not to. I understand why they wouldn't want to, but it's still gonna look tacky because it's, like a billion-dollar corporation chooses not to invest in, small indie company excuse or whatever when they have a shit ton of money. We've seen how much they spend on their other AAA titles like FF7 Remake and Rebirth and all that stuff, so when people see that FF14 is like the title that makes them the most money consistently quarter after quarter, and then they don't see that much money being reinvested back into it, and instead it goes into other projects that maybe FF14 players don't even care about, it's insulting. So it's insulting for the FF14 players, They're like, great, so my subscription money is literally not going to making this game that I play better. It's going to develop other games I don't even care about. Like,
Bruh, you suck!
So yeah, I think they should keep doing that. Despite how much work it is, I think they should keep doing it just because it shows that they, it would actually go a long way to showing people that they actually give a fuck about FF14 and its player base, who are bankrolling their entire company at the moment. So yeah, so that's one thing. The other thing that I wanted to touch upon from that video, and I wish I had a link too, I could share it, but I don't remember what it. I don't even remember what the video was called because I just saw somebody react to it. But the other part of that little like documentary that was like it was like an hour was about the music. This is the reason I even brought this up in the first place. The primary reason was to talk about the music because they obviously interviewed Masayoshi Soken, and I brought this up because we're listening to an FF14 track he did, but that is basically a remaster of Nobuo Uematsu's FF6 track of the same name, Dancing Mad. Kefka's theme, right? And they asked him how he feels about, like, I forgot what exactly the question was about regarding the music, but it was pertaining to when he's done music like this from older Final Fantasy games and put it into 14. And he said he always asks himself, what would Nobuo Uematsu do, you know? Because he was his, like, that was his mentor. His mentor was Nobuo Uematsu, right? So he would always ask himself, what would Nobuo Uematsu do? And he always tries to sort of, especially when he's remastering one of his tracks, like this one, he'll always try to sort of emulate him as best he can. And he learned from him, so that's not too difficult for him to do. And I think he nails it. But sometimes when he gets stuck, especially if he's making like just an original track himself, and he gets a little stuck, or just for the hell of it decides to bring up the topic to Uematsu when they go out drinking together. He said this. He said when they go out for a drink together, he'll talk about this sometimes. But he admitted they go out for drinks together sometimes, and he says that sometimes he'll ask him that same question. What would you do in this situation, or what do you think I should do for like this soundtrack I'm trying to compose for FF14, you know? And Nobuo Uematsu will just answer him, will usually just give him an answer like, it's Final Fantasy, you can do whatever you want, that's the beauty of it. Like, that's the great thing about Final Fantasy is you can do whatever you want, you know, you have creative freedom, go for it. But he says he interprets that usually as saying, well, you know, that's probably just... He used a special word that I forgot now, but it was kind of cute. It was kind of like the opposite of senpai. So senpai refers to like somebody who's your mentor or your master, right? So the reverse of that would be like somebody who's your student. He used that word, a word that obviously means that based on the context, but I forgot what the word was because I rarely... That's the first time I'd ever heard it. I think it started with a K. I can't remember what it was. I can't remember it exactly. He said, I think that was him just trying to be nice to like his student, because I can't remember the word he used. And you know, sort of trying to take pressure off of him, trying to like, that was like his way of telling him, you know, no pressure, like you got this, you'll be fine, just do whatever you want, you know, it's all good. And he says, so sometimes I like, you know, I'm like, all right, well, you know, thanks, but I know you're just trying to make me, you know, I know you're just trying to make me feel better or whatever. Like you're trying to take pressure off of me. And other times he goes like, yeah, you know what? He's right. I am just gonna do whatever the fuck I want. And so he'll just go like more freeform. I just thought that was a cute and funny segment. Or sometimes he'll interpret it as, yeah, okay, he's right. I'll just do whatever. And then other times he's like, oh, you're just being nice because you're just being too nice and trying to make me feel less pressured or whatever. Like, he obviously won't say that to him, but he'll think it. He'll just be like, ah, he's just being nice, you know? We all have those moments, you know? That's relatable. We all hang out with friends and family who sometimes will, like... You ask for, like, some kind of advice and they'll say something kind of generic, something like that, and you're just like, ah, they're just trying to make me feel better, you know? They're just trying to cheer me up or something. Also, I realized I didn't adjust the volume on this. I think I talk loud. This is probably still way too loud anyway. There. Changed the user interface a little bit for Spotify on mobile. The volume bar is a little different now. Not for when you're actually listening to it on mobile, but the volume bar for when you're controlling a speaker or connected to like my PC in this case. They changed it a little bit. Anyway, that useless information aside, let us continue. Oof. There we go. Alright, just had to make sure that went down properly. I didn't want to talk until I finished swallowing that pill in the water or whatever. But thank you very much for the follow, Wariv Ball 8. I appreciate that. Also, there was one that happened 3 days ago so this was like two streams ago, I believe, from Zay underscore Yumiko. So there's another one. That's another follow that it didn't actually. I don't remember hearing the notification go out for that one. I saw it after it had been there for a little bit, and I was like, wait, when did that happen? So I appreciate that follow as well. You're by yourself on Dreamcast too? I'm actually playing on PC through Blueburst on the Affinia private server. I know some people who play on Dreamcast though. Did you decide to revisit this game out of nostalgia, or do you play it regularly? Man, I just had a weird flashback to some stuff that was happening like a year ago when I first started playing this. When I first started playing Blueburst. Like here on the Affinia server and everything. I never played it during the official server, so... I just had a weird like memory come up of some of the like online drama, not even video game related, well, not directly, that was happening around that time, like about a year ago, or at least stuff that I was keeping up with anyway, like just over a year ago. What a weird flashback I just had. I play on Affinia too, but I play regularly. I'm in the multiverse on GameCube too. I know a lot of people who do that, yeah. I know quite a few people who play on like every single platform. I'm like, dude, I could never. That's way too many different characters to juggle. Like, can't do that. I chose the one with the best sort of quality of life, balanced with still feeling kind of vanilla, like the vanilla experience that I remember from back in the GameCube days. My first time playing this game was on Dreamcast, but I didn't really get into it back then. I never really got into it until the GameCube version came out, which was multiplayer. and I got to play together with my brother and my cousins. That's when I really got into it, because we all got into it and started playing it a lot back in the 2000s. Blueburst I never heard of until the servers were already shut down. And by the time I heard of it, there was some private servers already, but they were really janky. The setup for them and everything was really jank. They've come a long way since then. This is in like the early to mid 2010s, so between 2010 and 2015. They're really janky. But now, now there's some pretty good stable ones out there, including this one. It's like waking up from a long nap to switch between consoles. Yeah, I can see that. I can't remember, but I think we reached level 185 at the last... kind of at the last minute in one of the previous Blueburst streams a month ago. I didn't check how much EXP we started with. But level ups are going to be slow in general from now on, so... as this is where the EXP required for the next level up starts to go up dramatically for every level now. The closer we get to 200. My HP, 1556. Something about that number that makes me think it has some sort of significance. I don't know why. My brain is like, that means something. Like, does it? What does it mean? death. You could be playing by yourself and still feel online with PSO. You feel that connectivity? I feel that too, honestly. At least playing here on Affinia anyway. Back when I used to play by myself on GameCube, you know, those days when my brother and my cousins weren't available and we weren't, for whatever reason, we weren't playing together that day or something, and I just played by myself. It felt very lonely and isolated, I gotta say. Because I always wondered what it was like online. I always wished I had the money to actually pay for an internet. I was a kid, I couldn't. But I wished I'd actually been able to pay for like an internet connection and the service account or whatever. So I could have played online and seen what it was like. I always sort of tried to imagine. Because I'd always liked the concept of an MMO back then, as a kid. I always thought the idea was fascinating. So I always kind of wanted to experience that, but I never got to, you know? But I always just sat there wondering about it. And it felt lonely, you know? But now playing on Affinia though, because it's literally always online, I feel connected through, even if I'm playing by myself like this, every time I go back to the lobby, sometimes I'll see people there, you know? But also when I see the tickers go across the top of the screen when somebody gets like a rare item or gets to level 200. Or when Mercy does one of her little shoutouts for various things that she does little shoutouts for. It reminds me that there's other people in this world with me, even if I'm currently in a lobby by myself. And it's really nice. You don't mean anything by it? I don't know what... Well, I'm not sure what you meant by that, but yeah, I didn't like take it the wrong way or anything. But yeah. Yeah, there was other online games like that too. Like another one I really wanted to play online was Resident Evil Outbreak. I rambled about that too. I actually did get to play that one though. We did get internet connection just in time for me to experience that for like a year or two at least before the server shut down. And luckily that one did not require a paid subscription either, so I got to make some fun memories with some people on that one. Resident Evil Outbreak File 1 and 2 for the PlayStation 2. Fun times. I even got to play it on PS3. It made the loading times a little bit better. A little bit. People noticed when you were on a PS3 if you played online though, because they noticed how much faster, like even though it's a small increase, the loading times were noticeably faster, and people could tell. Oh shit. The loading times were the biggest deal killer of that game. Not recently, but a couple years ago I downloaded it for PSX E2 or whatever, because there's a private server for Outbreak as well. A little small you know, fan run, obviously, just like this. Community for that game as well on a private server. For both of them. And so I got an emulator package to let you like connect to it or whatever. A couple years ago. And they actually have a way so that you can install it to the hard drive. This was something that was available even back in the PS2 days. If you happen to have a hard drive, it's like one of the for the PS2, which one of the only ways that I heard about getting one of those was to buy Final Fantasy 11 for the PS2 back in those days. That's like the only way you could get one. If you happen to have one though, you can install the game there and decrease the loading times to like almost instantaneous. That was something you couldn't even do on the PS3. Even with the PS3 you couldn't do that. So the loading times were actually still longer on a PS3 than on a PS2 that had a hard drive attached to it. Because the PS3 didn't let you do that or whatever. Even though it obviously had a hard drive. There was no more memory cards anymore once the PS3 era started, but because it was a PS2 game, they couldn't really detect the PS3's hard drive the way it should. It wasn't programmed that way. So you had to have an actual PS2 hard drive attached to an authentic PS2. So the emulator lets you do that though. And they even had steps to do it, and I did it. And I was like, I wonder what the loading times are actually like in this game. If I do the hard drive thing, you know? They are insanely fast. Like it just doesn't compare. Like there's a reason that they had it so that people playing on hard drive had to play separately from people that were not playing with the game installed on hard drive. You're segregated basically. It becomes two separate communities of people you can play with if you play on hard drive, because the loading times are so dramatically different that you would just completely leave behind everybody not playing on a hard drive if they let you play with them. You would smoke them. You could finish the whole stage while they're barely getting through the opening cutscene or something, basically. It was that bad. Congrats on Outbreak Online. I think they should make a new one. Yeah, a huge chunk of the Resident Evil fan base really wants to see them, at the very least, wants to see Capcom, and I'm one of these people, at least port it. Even if you don't remaster it, at least port it, so that we can play it online without having to go through a jank-ass private server. Like port it to Steam or something, you know? That would be really nice. A remake would be nicer, but in this day and age, a lot of us are also kind of pessimistic that they would fuck that up. If they remade it, it just wouldn't have all they would cut so much content that was in the original Outbreaks that it just probably wouldn't be that enjoyable. The number of different characters you could play as in the original Outbreak games is insane. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't even do a fraction. Considering how much content they cut out of Resident Evil 3 Remake, it's pretty obvious they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do it justice, basically. So most people are just kind of like, can we just get a port or a remaster where they just update the graphics a little bit, maybe the resolution, the textures, just a little, and that's it, and just make it so that you can play it online without a private server. That would be really nice, you know? Yeah. The closest we got to a modern Outbreak game is literally the game that they attached to Resident Evil 3 Remake. I think it was called Project Resistance. They later renamed it to Resident Evil Resistance. It's basically, that would have been a modern Outbreak if they hadn't turned it into an asymmetrical PvP game. Like if you made the mastermind, the villain, I guess, an AI, and it was just like a co-op game between the 4 survivors, that would literally have been a modern Outbreak right there. That would have been it. Like they literally just had to make a co-op mode, a non-PvP mode for that game, and that would have been it. They literally just took the concept of Outbreak, but added modern Resident Evil aspects to it, like over-the-shoulder, third-person gameplay aspects, and then fucked it up at the last second by making it an asymmetrical PvP instead of just keeping it a co-op game. That one feature is all they had to do. They could have made it optional. They could have had it both ways. They could have just made the asymmetrical PvP be like an extra mode. Instead, they made it the only game mode. We were literally this close from having a modern outbreak with that game. This close. Obviously, they would have had to give it a story and make way more stages if we wanted, you know, if they wanted to actually live up to Outbreak, but if you just look at it from a concept perspective, it was there. Like, you just look at the gameplay and you could just look at, you could almost just see it as a demo for Outbreak if it wasn't for the PvP aspect. A demo for a modern Outbreak, I mean. A modern Outbreak game. Sucks too is the fact that they're actually making more and more references to Resident Evil Outbreak lately too, in like the actual modern Resident Evil games that are coming out. So it's like Capcom knows we like it, or they wouldn't be acknowledging it so much. Alyssa Ashcroft, which is one of the characters from Outbreak, is mentioned as she was a journalist in that game, and she's mentioned as a journalist who wrote a newspaper that you can find in the Baker House in Resident Evil 7. And now the latest Resident Evil game that's coming out this next February, the main character is her daughter. Like, they established that right off the bat with the first trailer. So it's like, Capcom, why do you keep acknowledging Outbreak without actually giving us what we want? It's like they're dangling keys in front of us, man. Resident Evil 2. Great franchise. It's one of those franchises that has felt mostly the most consistent, at least, throughout all the years that I've been playing it. I think the roughest it ever got was when it went into when it went from being survival horror to more action horror with Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6. That was about the only time period where things seemed a little questionable for the future of the series, but even those games are actually really fucking good and really fun to play. Like, I still didn't mind them at all. There's other fans who obviously don't like them at all compared to like the old school games, but still, for the most part, for me, that franchise is always it's never truly like really disappointed me. I've never played a Resident Evil game out of the mainline games where I felt like this is trash. At least not that I can remember right now, no. Like, I actually enjoy the whole franchise quite a bit. And I can't say that for Final Fantasy. I used to be able to say that about Kingdom Hearts until Kingdom Hearts 3 came out. Yeah, I think, besides Resident Evil, the only other franchise that I felt was consistently really, really good for me was Kingdom Hearts. Final Fantasy was all over the place once it went to 13. For me, anyway. It seemed all over the place at that point. Like, it just went off the rails. They couldn't decide what they wanted the Final Fantasy franchise to actually be anymore after 12. It felt directionless a little bit, starting with 13. Like, it was sort of losing its identity. That kind of thing. But yeah, Kingdom Hearts and Resident Evil were, I think, the most consistent, longest running franchises for me for quite a long time. Where I felt like every game felt consistently good. And Resident Evil to this day still feels that way for me. Every game, every mainline game that comes out, I'm just like, even if it's not my favorite, I'm always like, yes, that was good. I liked it. You know, like I'm always smiling by the end of it. I'm just like, oh, that was a good game. And I always have the urge to like replay it again, basically. I'm gonna be doing a Resident Evil marathon in the lead up to Resident Evil 9. And I can't think of a single game that has me like dreading it. I'm not sitting here going, oh fuck, I really don't want to play that one Resident Evil game, you know, like I can't think of one. No, I can't think of one like that. Whereas when I did the Final Fantasy marathon like years ago for Endwalker, I mean, there was a ton of games I literally just watched on YouTube because I was like, I'm not playing that. I was like, I'm not playing that. If I do a marathon? Well, thanks. I appreciate that. But I do have to preface by saying, when I say marathon, I don't mean I'm going to like stream for 24 hours straight or something, though. It's going to be spread out over several weeks and probably months. There's not much time left before Resident Evil 9, so I can't say months. But it's going to be spread out over a long period of time. Just to be clear. I'm definitely not doing a 24-hour stream. Yeah, I think as soon as I finish Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis, as soon as I finish my very first playthrough of the story for that game, I don't think it's going to take long. I feel like it's definitely going to be shorter than PSO2, the classic game. But as soon as we're done with that, I'm going right into Resident Evil, I think. Because, yeah, Resident Evil 9 is right around the corner. It's coming out in February, so... In fact, I gotta check if... I don't even know if pre-orders are up yet, but like I imagine that they will be soon. That's only like less than 3 months away now. Yeah, it's roughly like 3 months or less away. At least the last time I checked the release date. They might even put a new trailer in the Game Awards. The Game Awards are coming up in like a week or two, right? I never really... Like, I never really care about the Game Awards. I kind of just like to see the trailers for new games that are announced at the Game Awards, but other than that, I really don't give a shit about it. So I've never really marked my calendar for it. I don't know when it happens. I just know it's coming up soon because I only know it's coming up soon because streamers that I keep up with are, you know, starting to talk about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that always happens in December, doesn't it? Every year, it's always, oh yeah, that's a thing. Like, I never... Unless somebody reminds me, I never remember that shit exists. It's just one of those things I'm just like, whatever, you know? That one kid, though, from a couple years ago, who single-handedly incentivized them to actually put proper security at the event. When he went up there. When Elden Ring won. Oh, that was good. Said some gibberish about Bill Clinton and then lied. That was hilarious. I think the funniest part was just knowing there was gonna be a ton of security the next year. That time I actually remembered it existed on my own because I wanted to see. I wanted to tune in the next year and see how much more security they added. And yeah, they added some dudes in the fucking aisles and shit. Because of what that kid did the year before. That dude's a fucking legend, man. He made his mark on video game history for that moment for that moment alone. Why did he aim over at the... Fuck! How the hell did he do that? Now we have to sit through this crap. GG, gonna stretch. See you soon. Alright, take care, Warren. Thank you for the follow and everything and for hanging out. Appreciate it. Hope you have a good evening. Almost time to wrap up, too. Dragon's Claw. Atlantis' favorite. Atlantis has been summoned. Did he kill up here? Pause champing. Either way, take it away, Ultima. For the last 10 minutes. Loops quite a bit. Why the hell did they make it 9.5 minutes? What the fuck? I was like, wait a minute, I feel like we've heard this like little chorus a lot of times. Like, I'm not sure why they decided to make it 9.5 minutes on Spotify. Most of the other tracks are, they only loop a few times, like 1 or 2 times, and it's over. They're all like 3 to 4 minutes. I don't know why they made this one so long. It's giving Dancing Mad a run for its money. You know, 17-minute track. Which, even that is split into 4 different tracks. Dancing Mad Movement 1, 2, 3, and 4, with the 4th one being 8 minutes long. That's what we heard in the first half of this stream, because that's how long it was. But this song by itself, without even changing forms or anything, is just 9.5 minutes. It's like, what the fuck? I was like, dude, we've heard this already. Why is it looping this many times? Like, here we go again. It's going again. There's a couple other long ones coming up too, but this one surprised me. I see a few coming up that are like 6 to 7 minutes. I guess maybe I just didn't notice those ones were that long before because they sound slightly less repetitive, maybe? Why did it just abruptly stop? There's still 6 seconds of this. Okay. That was fucking weird. I don't know what they did with some of these soundtracks. Almost Murderous. This is one of my personal favorites. I can do this. We're going to war. Yeah, for the most part, that's kind of the vibe. Like, just listen to how powerful the intro for that was, like, of this track. Like, it was meant to basically say, with music instead of words, it's fucking on. The war is on, basically. Which, yeah, it makes sense for that part of the story. Yeah, Nobuo Uematsu and Masayoshi Soken both have done a great job at, like, preserving the aspect of musical storytelling in the modern day. I say preserving because that was, like, one of the main methods that any video game used to tell a story back in the days before voice acting. When you had to read all the text on the screen, or games that didn't even have a lot of text. There was a lot of non-RPG, like, just action arcade games that told the story through little short little cutscenes and sequences with music, and that was it. Like, the characters never talked, right? And that's back when music played such a huge role in telling the story, conveying the emotion of what was happening and all that stuff. And that just kind of faded out once voice acting became a thing. Like, even in RPGs, a lot of RPGs lost their... You could tell the quality of their soundtrack started going down over time after voice acting became a really mainstream thing. Square Enix said, no, we're gonna keep the musical storytelling up. Or at least Nobuo Uematsu and Soken did. I don't really remember any memorable soundtracks in FF13 where neither one of them were very involved too heavily in that. So... at least where those two guys are involved, the music is chef's kiss, even with voice acting. Like, listen to that shit, man. That's just fucking hoggers.
You son of a bitch.
Fucking orchestra going in, dude. Like, it wasn't, even though I still haven't played FF16, and I've avoided quite a bit of spoilers this far, thankfully. I was not shocked in the slightest when it easily swept for best soundtrack at the Game Awards on the year that came out. I was like, yeah, of course, it's got Soken doing the soundtrack. Of course he fucking knocked that shit out of the park. Like, are you kidding me? I wasn't surprised at all. Same dude that does the FF14 soundtrack did 16s? Of course it's gonna win. Listen to this, man. This is hyper fucking poggies.
Bitch.
See, that one deserves to loop a little bit more. Only 5 minutes. Fucking awesome. And that is pretty much it. I'm not even gonna spoil the next track that's coming up, because it'll make certain fans jizz in their pants as soon as they hear the opening riff, so I stopped it just in time. It's too much of a hyper poggers moment in the story, so anybody who's familiar is gonna be like, oh my god! So yeah, not spoiling that. I'll leave you wondering which track was coming up next. I'll have to find out next stream. At the start of next stream. Or I might actually open up next stream with that track we just heard. Actually, yeah, I might do that. It's kind of fitting. But yeah, we reached exactly the timestamp I wanted to, 105, when my little recording. Right when we killed the dragon there, and that track ended. So it's perfect timing. So we will leave it here for now. As always, thank you all very much for watching. I appreciate the support across Twitch, YouTube, and any other platform I end up on. Is this a bow? There we go. Vaughn and I are bowing out. But as always, thank you all very much for the support, like I just said, and please do take care of yourselves. Excuse me. Stay safe and don't die. And until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, and good night. And now, we're going to send it out in style. Peace. Take it away, Vaughn. Here we go. Where is it? It's 1. Here we go. Like that. I hit the wrong button. Well, you got your preview. Good night, everybody.